Hi everyone, in this video I'll talk about how I break down my monthly salary of $3,200. I'll be giving some background first so that you can see the big picture and understand what I'm working with. I'll put timestamps in the description so you can skip around if you want. Let's begin. Full disclosure, my salary is actually $3,250. I got a raise of $50 in the second renewal of my contract in 2021, and for simplicity's sake, I thought $3,200 would look better in the title than $3,250. Okay, I do all of my budget planning for the month on Google Sheets first. I use Google Sheets because I find it easier to use compared to Microsoft Excel, and it's also easier to access on my phone. But any kind of spreadsheet program would be convenient because you can write in the formulas to make calculations easier for you. But since this is more of a general overview kind of budgeting, you can also do this on a piece of paper. While I do my general monthly budgeting on Google Sheets, I don't use it as my everyday spending tracker to track my day-to-day expenses. I will discuss the specific tools I use for that in another video, because in this video I want to discuss more about my general framework for budgeting and allocating my monthly income. First, some background about myself. I'm 25 years old, I'm Singaporean, and I live in Singapore. I work full-time at a company and I've been working for about 2 years. I'm technically on contract, so I don't get the full spectrum of company medical benefits. All I get is about $360 a year, capped at $30 per claim. I am the sole breadwinner of my family, and I'm supporting myself and my mother, who is unemployed. I am also the sole homeowner of a 2-room HDB flat, and I live here with my mum. I'm single with no plans for children in the future, and I don't have any high-interest debt like credit card debt, but I do have a student loan that I'm in the midst of repaying. For context also, if you're not from Singapore, generally, basic necessities of survival like food and groceries are pretty affordable and accessible here. Though of course this is relative, and I'm mostly speaking from personal experience and as someone who has a regular source of income. The public transport system is also pretty good, and most people, including myself, can get by very comfortably without a car, which is very expensive in Singapore anyway. Then there are also many government schemes that provide financial subsidies for things like utilities, for example, USAVE vouchers and CDC vouchers. So really, it's possible to live quite a comfortable and modest life on $39K a year, which is my annual income, given my current lifestyle and how many people I have to support. On to my budgeting framework. I follow the general guideline of 50-30-20 for expenses, savings, and wealth. I first learned about this from Seedly, which is a personal finance blog based in Singapore. They have a lot of great articles on personal finance, and they're written in a really accessible way, so I highly recommend reading their blog if you don't already. They have everything from beginner budgeting to crypto investing if you're interested. So what does the 50-30-20 refer to? Well, it's a starting point for allocating your salary if you've just received your first paycheck and you have no idea what to do with it. How it works is 50% goes to all your expenses. This is your bills and also your personal spending like food and shopping, etc. 30% goes to your savings. This includes building your emergency fund or saving up for a short-term goal like a holiday or a future home. 20% goes to wealth. This is your retirement fund. The difference between savings and wealth is that wealth is specifically for your retirement and nothing else. And because this is such a long-term goal, this allocation of your money shouldn't be going into a savings account where all that money will just depreciate over time. It should ideally go into an investment portfolio. Anyway, I don't follow the numbers precisely as you'll see later on, but I do always have the numbers in the back of my mind. Speaking of goals, I'll cover that in another video in greater specifics. Further breaking down the category of expenses, there is fixed expenses and variable expenses. We're not going into essential or non-essential here. What defines fixed and variable is really just that. Fixed expenses do not change month to month and that you have to pay regardless. These can include insurance payments and phone bills. Variable expenses are things like food, shopping, public transport. I'm quite broad when it comes to variable expenses as listed in my Google Sheets because, like I said, I'm not using this as my day-to-day expense tracker. The nitty-gritty categories of my spending are in my money tracker app on my phone. Now, to the actual breakdown of my salary. Here is an overview of my budgeting template on Google Sheets. Usually, I start thinking about my budget for the month even before my salary comes in, This helps me to anticipate any upcoming payments that might happen in the next month or anything I'm planning to buy. So let's pretend it's mid-November right now and I want to budget for December. I'll duplicate this sheet you see on my screen right now and rename it to December 2021 and change all the relevant titles. The reason why I make a copy of this sheet is because this is my template and I don't want to make edits on my template. Also, it allows me to archive all the budget sheets I've made for previous months. Once my salary comes in and I've made all the necessary transfers to various accounts, I can then hide this sheet from view so that it doesn't clutter my tabs here, but the sheet is still there in case I ever need to reference back to a past month. Also, any changes that I make to the budget sheet in the month, like say I add a column or add a category row, I make sure to copy that change into the template as well so that it will be copied over in future months. And then I'll update the last updated date here so that it reflects the last time a change was made. So now, let's work on my December budget. You can see here that the numbers are copied over as well, which makes it easier for me each month. Generally, my spending within each category has not varied too widely, especially my fixed expenses. I will go through this quite systematically here and go line by line, but firstly we should break down my salary and see how CPF comes into the picture as well. If you're from Singapore, you probably already know this, but it bears explaining again for the purpose of this video. Also, if you're just starting out a job and you're not sure how or why CPF matters, please pay attention. If you're Singaporean or a Singapore PR and you're employed in Singapore, 20% of your salary is automatically deducted and put in your CPF account. CPF stands for Central Provident Fund, and it's a compulsory savings account and pension plan for working Singaporeans and permanent residents, primarily to fund their retirement, healthcare, and housing needs in Singapore. So, while my salary on paper is $3,250, what actually enters my bank account is 80% of that, which is $2,600. But on top of your 20% contribution to your CPF, your employer also contributes an additional 17% to your CPF. If you look on screen here, my salary is $3,250, but what I take home is $2,600. 20% of my pay, which is $650, was automatically deducted from my salary and deposited into my CPF account. However, my employer is also depositing an extra 17% of my salary's gross number, which is $553 in my case. Now, this $553 is not considered part of my salary on paper. My salary is not $3,803 on my contract. It's essentially free money, though access to it is pretty limited. This applies for most, if not all, salaried employees who are under a company in Singapore, and of course if you're Singaporean or a PR. If we total my 20% and my employer's 17%, that gives us this amount, $1,203, which is further divided into my ordinary, Medisave, and my special account in the following percentages. This percentage allocation will vary slightly with age, but these are the percentages for those under 35 years old. Let's bring our focus here to the ordinary account, or OA. I am contributing a total of $748 each month. My monthly mortgage for my home, which is my monthly repayment to the loan issuer for the purchase of my home, is $904. The loan issuer here can be a bank if you're taking a bank loan, or HDB if you're going for a HDB loan. While technically I can pay all of it with money from my CPF OA, I don't have enough money in my CPF currently or on a month-to-month basis to pay all of it by just CPF. I only have $748 coming in each month, which is why I have to top up the remaining shortfall in cash. You can vary the payment allocation quite easily on your HDB e-portal account. So as you can see, this extra 17% contribution by my employer is pretty crucial in my being able to pay off my monthly mortgage without having to fork out that money from my take-home salary. That's about it for the CPF portion of my salary breakdown. Other than my OA, I use my Medisave account to offset the costs of medical bills when I can, and my special account is pretty much untouchable until I'm 55, so there's that. We can go back to my budgeting section now and take a look at how I allocate the salary that I actually receive in my bank account every month. Okay, so I'll key in my salary here and my template automatically deducts 20% of it, which leaves me with $2,600. On to my fixed expenses. This first section here are all my loan payments. I took a study loan during my university degree back in 2015, so I'm making the minimum repayments of $100 a month. My loan is interest-free until 2024, which is why I'm not rushing to pay it all back as soon as possible. Also, study loan payments were suspended from June last year until just October this year because of the pandemic. As I explained just now, I have to pay part of my monthly mortgage payment in cash, so that's $160 a month for now. In this row, I will put the amount of any outstanding credit card bills I have. I try very hard not to spend more than what I allocate, but there are some rare months where I'll have to put things on credit card, which means that those expenses will eat into my budget for the next month. Thankfully for now, I don't have any outstanding credit card bills. The next section are my utility bills. I pay $30 a month for service and conservancy charges, which are the monthly fees collected by my town council for maintenance of the neighborhood and the estate. This varies by area, house type, and also whether or not you're staying in the unit or renting it out. Because I live in a 2-room HDB, my charges are on the lower end. We also get rebates for this. In 2021, I got April, July, and October waived, so I didn't have to pay the S&C charges for those months. I pay $15 in total for my phone bill as well as my mother's phone bill. My phone plan with Giga is $10 a month, and my mother's phone plan is with Circles for $5 a month. My monthly Wi-Fi bill with My Republic is about $42 a month. Next are my electricity and water and gas bills. Of all the bills on this list, these are the only ones that are not technically fixed every month, as it will vary by a few dollars depending on our usage for that month. On top of that, the USAVE vouchers given by the government also offsets most of our utility bills. The vouchers work like rebates, so it's credited to my HDB Flats utilities account. In 2021, I think I received close to $600 in USAVE vouchers, so ultimately I probably paid only 2 months worth of utilities in full. I'll include a link in the description where you can find more information about it. Anyway, I usually have these numbers written here as an average of what I will usually spend, regardless of the USAVE vouchers or not. And then I'll check my previous bills to see how much of the rebates I have left and adjust the values from there. Some months I know I have like $150 left in rebates, so I'll just delete the values from my table because I know I have enough to cover my utility payments in full. For demonstration, I'll just leave these values here because I actually have run out of my USAVE rebates this month. Next are my monthly insurance payments. Nothing much to say here. It's about $340 a month. I pay for my own life insurance and my mother's health insurance. For now, those are the only premiums I'm paying, but it will definitely increase in the future as my mum ages, and also I would like to get hospitalization insurance for myself. I'm an NTUC Union member, which is $9 a month and $18 in December. The main supermarket that we go to is NTUC Fair Price, so I figured the monthly membership fee is worth it, plus there are other benefits as well. Lastly is my tax payment for 2022. This is just money that I'm putting aside for my taxes in 2022 so that I can pay it off in one shot when it's due and not have to do the monthly installments. Okay, next is variable expenses. I put $100 in my mum's bank account every month for her personal spending and also any groceries she buys for the household. I have a joint account with my partner where we both put in about $100 a month. This money is purely for our shared expenses when it comes to food and entertainment. It's not any kind of long-term savings account. As you can see, I categorized it as non-essential because it's something that we can cut back massively on if we need to. Next is my budgeted amount for public transport. This has varied widely over the months. Some months I spend below $40 on transport because I'm not commuting to office and I'm not going out much. Now that COVID restrictions have eased, I definitely anticipate a rise in my transport costs, so I'm budgeting $80 for it. I am also budgeting $250 for food and groceries. This includes dining out and groceries for the household. $20 for household spending includes things like cleaning supplies, toiletries, things like that. My biggest expense recently has been my weekly therapy appointments. It took me a long time to commit this amount of money for something like therapy, and it also meant that I had to cut back majorly on my own personal expenses. As you can see, I'm only allocating $50 a month for fun shopping, where before I used to budget $150 to $200. Even then, I would frequently blow my budget for that category. So starting next year, I'm committing to a low buy year, which means that I'll be buying as little as possible and sticking to my strict budget of $50. I'll make another video about this, and if you're interested in hearing about that, you can subscribe to my channel. Anyway, so far therapy has been a pretty good investment. It's like exercise, It might be difficult and painful to do it at first, but it'll pay off dividends in your mental health in time to come. And if I had to spend my money anyway, I would feel better knowing that that money is going to something that will improve my well-being in the long run, instead of going to yet another impulse skincare purchase that I'll regret. Alright, so that's all for expenses, a total of $780 for fixed expenses and $780 for variable expenses. I didn't intentionally mean for the numbers to match, but they do. In total, my expenses add up to $1,560 a month, which is 60% of my salary. Next, we have savings accounts. In the year of 2021, I was aggressively trying to build up my family's emergency fund because I pretty much wiped out all my savings when I bought my 2-room HDB flat. Previously, I was saving about $700 a month back when I didn't have to top up that extra $160 for my mortgage and my study loan repayments were suspended. But when I had to start making those monthly payments, I had to cut back on the money I could allocate to building my emergency fund, so for now it's $400. But good news, I recently just hit my 6-month emergency fund goal of $15,000, so I might start slowing down my monthly allocation to about $300 to focus on my other money goals. One of my goals is to get LASIK, which is an optional vision corrective surgery. It can cost something between 4 to 5K, so I'm slowly saving up for that, and hopefully I can get it before I turn 30. Next, I'm also investing $100 in ETFs on DBS Invest Saver, which is kind of like a robo-advisor. I've decided to dedicate this investment account as my mother's retirement fund in the future. The reason why I've put it under my savings category instead of my wealth category is because technically this investment account is not going towards my retirement. I'd rather keep my own retirement investments separate from my other investments. So this also applies to my StashAway savings here. StashAway is another robo-advisor and I'm putting $200 a month into an investment portfolio. But again, I consider this as savings instead of wealth because I'm not putting aside this money for my retirement specifically. This money is for a midterm goal about 7 to 10 years from now. Finally, we come to my wealth category. So far, I only have one investment portfolio dedicated to my retirement fund, which I've decided to park into Syfe. It was a bit difficult at first to commit money into this, knowing that I won't see it until like 40 years from now. So I started with $100 at first and then eventually I committed to $100. So taking into account expenses, savings and wealth, I'm left with $40 that have not been allocated. I try to keep about $50 in this balance just as a buffer because unexpected expenses crop up all the time, like a medical bill or needing to replace a broken item. I formatted this cell so that anytime it falls below 50, it turns orange, and if it falls below 0, it'll turn red. For any value above 50, it will remain green. I've included a summary table here that looks at my allocation by percentage. While my savings are close to my ideal target, I can see that my expenses far exceed my target of 50%, which means that my wealth allocation will consequently be squeezed. So my goal here would be to reduce my expense allocation down to 55% or 50% and raise my wealth allocation, which is slightly difficult for now because I have tried my best to move things around and at the same time, I don't want to sacrifice my efforts to reach my other goals like getting LASIK or working on my mental health through therapy. So what I can do moving forward is to increase my salary and keep my lifestyle and my expenses as it is, and therefore reducing the percentage of expenses. This is how I use the 50-30-20 allocation rule as a guide to my budgeting. I'll just explain the other sections here on my template. As mentioned previously, I do get USave rebates for my utilities and SNC charges waived in some months, so I make sure to note them down here for reference during my planning. I also have this table here to note down things like my subscriptions and whether or not it's paid monthly or annually, things like that. This helps me anticipate future large expenses. For example, I have my home insurance here that expires in 3 years, and I'll want to renew that when it does, and it costs $120. So closer to that end date of my policy in 2024, I'll know to put aside that extra money to renew my home insurance policy. Likewise with my annual subscriptions like my Google One and my Spotify Premium. Finally, I want to give a quick mention on automation and how I automate some of my finances. It's an advice frequently given and I definitely agree that it's extremely helpful and helps take the stress of having to go in and make the transfers and payments every single time. So what I automate are utility payments and my investments. I'm sure most people who are tech savvy already do this, linking their credit cards to their utilities. It's the most straightforward thing to automate and makes it way more convenient than having to make payments manually every month. I link my credit card to my electricity, water and gas, Wi-Fi, phone bill, and insurance payments. I also use Gyro for some of the other payments like my SNC charges and NTUC membership fee. My investments are also automated. For DBS Invest Saver, it's a recurring deduction every 15th of the month. For Stashaway and Syfe, which are robo-advisors, I set a standing instruction to transfer my investment amounts from my bank account on the 15th of the month as well, so that it syncs up with my DBS Invest Saver since I can't change that date. What I choose not to automate are my credit card bill payments and my monthly savings for my emergency fund. When my credit card bill statement is out, I use it as an opportunity to look through, check, and reflect on the month's spending. My mum also has a supplementary credit card, and I separate the payments made by her and myself. I use her bank account to pay her bills, and I use my own bank account to pay for mine. I also don't automate my emergency fund transfers because the amount might vary month to month depending on my planned expenditure for that particular month. There is also the issue of cash flow since the timing of my salary payment might not be 100% consistent. It's not inconsistent, but there have been a couple months where it came in late. So I try to make sure to always have some money in my bank account to prevent an overdraft, but just to be safe, I will only transfer my emergency funds out of my bank account once my salary has been deposited. We've come to the end of the video. Thank you for staying through till the end, and I hope this gave you some inspiration or motivation to help you get started on your budget if you're not already doing it. I'll include the template that I use in the description below, so feel free to download it for your own budget planning. Some closing thoughts. I am very grateful to be where I am right now, and it's a huge blessing to be able to live comfortably on the salary I am earning. I'm able to support my mom, and we have our own home. We eat well, and we don't struggle to pay bills every month. A modest and comfortable life is attainable for us. It's very important for me to remind myself of this simple fact because it's so easy to fall into a trap where you're comparing yourself to others and then spiraling into a depressive cycle. But as my therapist says, success looks different for everyone. You have to work with what you have to suit your own unique situation. You can't compare apples to pears, which is another thing my friend told me. On the flip side, I also don't want to get complacent. I know that eventually I'll want to move on from my current job into a role with more growth and, of course, a higher salary. I'm still aiming for that 50-30-20 ratio, and to do this, I will have to increase my income. I have other financial goals I want to reach, like planning a holiday, getting my driver's license, and perhaps even buying a new home for my family in the future. For now, though, I'm very blessed. Thank you for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next one.